Hello and welcome back to the For the Badge podcast. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the coming fixtures. Going to talk about some predictions, and we are going to go back through some of the recent form from some of the teams. Alrighty, first up is the Leicester Man City game this weekend, tomorrow morning, in fact, at the King Power Stadium. Interesting that Leicester have had a nice little run here. They've won 3 of the last 5, only lost once. Last 2 games, pretty impressive. Definitely starting to see in these games what we know has been there for a while. The 4-0 win away to Wolves, especially. Again, it's kind of like you think it's like about time to see some of these games. I know it's not the best of opposition in the league, but they also played well the game before. 2 shutouts in a row, 6 goals without giving one. I mean, that's as good as you can ask for. But unfortunately, they are coming up against the reigning champions, Man City. Uh, Interesting to note that Erling Haaland might actually not be in the game at the time of this recording. Still haven't heard if he's going to be in the game or not. So that could affect things. However, I still think that City have done it before without Haaland. Uh, he came off in the week against Dortmund and they struggled. It was one of those games where they knew they were through. I've already qualified for the knockout rounds of the Champions League, so we kind of figured that they wouldn't necessarily bring the normal energy that they would to a game of more consequence. But again, I did get to watch some of this one. Dortmund were good. Dortmund were solid defensively. So it's a good result for them, but kind of going through the motions a little bit. Uh, didn't have the same intensity that you'd expect. Plus, Holland goes off at halftime. But again, I don't think that he is their end all be all of everything. Obviously, they have a lot of quality as well. And so I definitely think Manchester City's just going to have too much in this game. Even away, the only thing about it that's interesting, that's kind of kind of a wild card, is the fact that you never know what you're going to get with Leicester. One day they'll take a 6-2, and then the next they'll win 4-0 away to Wolves. So at home, you gotta favor them, but they have been known to ship some goals this season at home. And so I just think that on the whole, Manchester City have the depth, have the quality to figure it out, even if Holland doesn't even play. Still giving them, for me, it's a 3-1. My man Xavier has predicted the 3-0. Doesn't think Leicester will score. I think that they have a little bit of confidence, so they will be able to get one. I'm calling a 3-1 for Manchester City. Next up is Bournemouth versus Spurs at the Vitality Stadium. Definitely an interesting prospect. This one, I think that Spurs will be looking to the next week with the Champions League on the line. It has not been a good time at the moment for Antonio Conte's men. Definitely caught the game a couple days ago, and the offsides where Harry Kane is perhaps barely barely the right word. It's an interesting one that only a computer, I think, would have been able to judge offsides. And I think Conte's right to be upset. Um, Maybe this one is correct by the letter of the law, but VAR has, and the referees in general, uh, in Champions League and in the Premier League, in my opinion, have been subpar this season in total as a whole. It's been tough. A lot of really interesting calls. That's interesting being nice about it, to be honest. But I think that Spurs are kind of rattled at the moment. Lost to United 2-0 away. Um, I mean, I've been saying it, and it's a broken record because Spurs are like a broken record this season. You know what you're going to get. You always know what you're going to get. They bring the same thing every time, and they brought it at Old Trafford, and it didn't work out. The problem is if they're ever sloppy, if they're ever not perfect, they're going to get scored on. Especially when people are stepping up in big games like this. Casemiro stepped up and had a great game. Fred looked amazing in the box to box role against Spurs, which is interesting. I think that, um, away from home, Spurs are definitely struggling. Uh, Definitely in that game, they struggled as more and more pressure was heaped on them. It could be said that United were a little lucky on a couple of things, but all in all, as far as Spurs away, it doesn't look like uh, they definitely can muster what they need to at Bournemouth. Although Bournemouth themselves, you know, I think at home are definitely a tough side. So therein lies the justification for thinking that maybe Bournemouth might be able to do something here in this game. Uh, Way to West Ham, they struggled for sure. I got my notes here saying that they lack sharpness, but again, this is another game that the referees completely just it just overshadowed the whole game with how poor it was. I don't think anybody understands the handball rule anymore. I don't think there's any point really trying to go over it. I don't really know exactly what people are
So
looking
I think that
for,
Bournemouth
what the
at home
referees are
are an
looking for, what
interesting
the VAR is
proposition. They're
looking
not
for.
great away from home, but despite the loss last time at home to Southampton, who are also an interesting proposition, I think that there's uh, there's reason to believe that Bournemouth can get a goal in this game. Solanke might be back, so that's good news for them. Um, Again, it just depends on if Spurs can be at their best. They're heavily relying on Kane to score goals, and I get that. Uh, but if they are as sloppy as they've been, this could be a tough one for them. And so maybe I predicted with my heart instead of my head on this one, but I'm predicting a 1-1 result. Xavier has predicted the 1-0. I'm just hoping Bournemouth can get the job done for me. Maybe I'm a little biased. Moving on to Brentford versus Wolves. We both have predicted the 2-0 to Brentford at home. That's understandable. Wolves were run over at home versus Leicester last time out. Uh, Definitely not a good result. It's not looking good for this one either. I personally thought this was kind of an easy one, and then away from home last time at Palace wasn't great either. Traore has been looking good, and Diego Costa might be back for this one, but I'm looking for Brentford to bounce back. Uh, they did recently get a good draw versus Chelsea, so that's going to bolster them despite the 4-0 defeat against a weird Aston Villa side. Who knows what you're going to get with them? So I'm looking for Ivan Tony and Mbomo and the boys to get back up on the horse, kind of find the rhythm again, and the 2-0 seems about right. And we have a very interesting prospect at the Amex Stadium as well for Brighton versus Chelsea. Chelsea are flying at the moment, still undefeated under ex-Brighton manager Graham Potter. So they're going to be feeling good, feeling confident about this one.
They've just topped the Champions League group as well. Kind of, as some would say, marching in silence. They're not really, there's not a lot of drama. All of that's kind of calmed down, which is good to see. Kind of see some things still about perhaps Chelsea wanted to bring Ronaldo in, which personally think would be an absolute mistake. But the reasons for that are quite obvious. Anyway, I think that Brighton also are in, conversely, a weird moment. Not great there. New coach still winless. However, they have had some good performances against Liverpool, not least of all. And I think that they're going to definitely look good at home. They're going to have some energy. I definitely think that Chelsea will just be a little bit too much. And so I've predicted a 2-1 Chelsea win. I just think Trossard might pop up with one for Brighton. But I do think that Chelsea are going to have too much kind of getting the formation and the rotation down as they've been trying to. It's looking good for them. I think it's going to be a good away win for Chelsea. Next up at Selhurst Park is Crystal Palace versus Southampton. Southampton have been definitely resurgent of late, looking good. Got the 1-0 win away, and then drew league leaders. Arsenal last time out. I thought that maybe a bit more of Arsenal were tired. Arsenal kind of backed off a little bit. In the first 20 minutes of the game, we were definitely dominant. Looked the same as we have all season. Got a goal, and then kind of backed off a little bit. Kind of something I hated about our team last season. But I understand. Trying to be a little bit professional. And we defended well. I thought there was a moment there where Southampton was like 6 corners in a row, and we stood up to every one of them. Again, it's hard to continue just speaking about the refs, complaining about the refs. Lot of noise in the media about how poor the referees were in this game. So I completely agree. That's about all I'll say. Obviously, Jesus should have had a penalty, but in the first half, I thought we were really good. I thought we maybe didn't have as much energy as we could have, but I thought Thomas Partey was integral to everything we were doing. And of course, Shaka pops up with the goal. I thought that after halftime, we definitely let the foot off the gas, and I thought they had a lot more energy. And something that I've accused of us this season, something I've seen this season in transition, we're just not getting close enough. Obviously, that's how we gave 3 goals to Man U, and so that's how we gave 2 goals to PSV for the loss on Thursday. So it's kind of like how we give up goals this season. It seems to be not getting close enough in transition, being a bit sloppy and losing the ball. And then at the end of this game, we looked tired. We looked like we were huffing and puffing a bit. Odegaard didn't really have the energy to come get the ball as much as he could have, much as he perhaps should have. And then when Arteta pulls him off and brings in Fabio Vieira, it's over. It's just over. I just don't think he's got the quality. He's had a couple of flashes. This game, he was awful. There's no sugarcoating it. He came in and gave the ball away nearly every time he touched it. He doesn't look for the dynamic pass enough for me. He doesn't do enough working back to get the ball. I think he works hard sometimes. He's got some running in him. I just think he's young and got a long way to go. Another area we suffered uh, both versus PSV and in the Southampton game is Nketiah needs to find his boots. He needs to find his scoring boots. It's bad when you can count on him to miss a real good opportunity each game more than you can count on him to score. And he's just not bringing the quality that we've seen in flashes sometimes, seen in cup runs, seen in Europa League sometimes. I just think Again, maybe a bit young and still needs some work, but I think that it's time he starts scoring. Time he starts putting these chances away. I think he definitely had the chance of the game to win the game for Southampton, and scuffs it wide. I think this is one of our biggest issues this season is that our quality off the bench is a huge drop off. I think we're really missing Smith Rowe, and I think we need to do some work in January. Uh, but all of that being said, I think Southampton value for their point. We didn't do enough, and I think they did just enough to get their point. Good for them. But also away from home, versus Crystal Palace. Palace are looking better at home. I think it's going to be tough for them. It's going to be tough for them. And I predicted myself a 2-1 Crystal Palace win. I do think Southampton might get a goal. They're scoring a little bit more. So Xavier clearly disagrees and has predicted a Crystal Palace 1-0 win over Southampton. Brings us to the game at St. James's Park, Aston Villa visiting Newcastle. And here's one where our predictions have varied dramatically. Xavier thinks it's going to be a 2-2 draw. I myself have predicted a 3-1 win for Newcastle. I just think, particularly in the moment, Newcastle are absolutely flying, looking really strong. They've beaten Spurs recently, and they had the 1-0 win versus Everton at home. Got the 1-0 win away. I got the 2-1 win, excuse me, away to Spurs. So I think they're in a really good moment. They're flying fourth place. And Everton's away form, despite their strong defense. Excuse me, not Everton. Looking at the wrong game. Villa's away form has been interesting. They haven't been great, but then they're in a weird moment, a real kind of a interesting situation. So Aston Villa are a team in flux right now. New coach coming in, one I'm familiar with. He's definitely going to short things up. Very interesting to see these reports that perhaps the Villa players were not happy with Steven Gerrard. Obviously, when you lose the locker room, it's not good. Kind of disappointing to see that as soon as they fire Gerrard, they start playing well again. I don't know how much of that is purposeful. If it is, that's pretty sad. And it's disappointing to see that in the league, but I guess that's the way it goes. So you never know. I just don't really know what you're going to get. I think that uh, with their team being so kind of up in the air right now, everything, I just don't think it's quite settled yet. I definitely think Newcastle are going to come away with a big win here. Maybe not an easy win, but I think they're going to have way too much. I got the 3-1 for Newcastle. We'll see if Xavier is correct with the 2-2. Can't wait for that one tomorrow. Now down at Craven Cottage in London, Fulham versus Everton. I do think that Fulham are in a good way right now. Obviously, Alexander Mitrovic still the main man. Uh, dramatic winner, dramatic win over Leeds. That was a great game. I remember watching some of that one recently away from home. Definitely gonna bolster morale. Um, Mitrovic can't stop scoring at the moment. You know, I've said it all along. He's an absolute monster, doing big things, doing wonderful things. I think that it's going to be a tough game, this one. Everton still have one of the best defenses in the league. So could be a tight one. Could be a tight one. I think that Fulham are going to just edge it 2-1. Uh, looks like looks like Xavier went with his Chelsea heart on this one, giving old Frankie Lampard a 1-1 draw. I think that Mitrovic's going to get one. I do give Everton credit for getting a goal. I think Calvert-Lewin is kind of coming back into stride. It's going to be a good one for him. But I do think Fulham are just going to edge it 2-1, just going to have too much. Really, really interesting prospect. Liverpool versus Leeds at Anfield. Uh, Liverpool, another team that are kind of going, they're kind of going up and down with their results. Obviously, they're a bit more in the public eye, a bit more of a higher profile. So their ups and downs are kind of interesting. Coming off the back of the monster win over City, kind of a definitely less energy versus West Ham. Get the 1-0. And then take care of business in the Champions League. So that's good. That's very good for them. So they're definitely in a good way. But I just think that Leeds are absolutely desperate right now. And that is not a good place. Uh, not good trying to play someone who's desperate like that. It is Anfield, however. I know Jesse Marsh is going to be up for this one. It is at Anfield, so I don't think Leeds are quite going to have enough to win, but I have predicted a 2-2 draw. Shock result for Leeds, something they can bring the energy and build off of. It's doable. Brighton have come to town and done it already this season. So I think that Leeds might just surprise a few and get a point at Anfield. Xavier disagrees. He thinks it's going to be a 2-0 Liverpool win. The free fall at Leeds continues, apparently. We shall see. On to the Emirates, where I do hope and think that Arsenal will bounce back. They are playing Nottingham Forest, who are bolstered by the win over Liverpool, but they're another team that you just never know what you're going to get. They've leaked goals away from home. And I'm really thinking that this needs to be a statement game for Arsenal. I know it's not like super strong opposition, but I think that after being really under it versus Leeds, then drawing disappointing leads to Southampton, and obviously the loss to PSV where we lacked any energy really to speak of. Kind of looked like we were going through the motions. Looked like we knew we only needed a point to win the group, and now we've put ourselves in jeopardy for in the next game, and at least in a position that now we definitely have to win the game to make sure we win the group, which is very important. But I do think we're going to bounce back and bring the energy at home. First, this one, I've predicted a 3-0 win to the Arsenal. Xavier has predicted a 2-0. I definitely know we've got the quality. Definitely know we've got the class. It's just going to be all about whether we can be as fired up as we have been. We haven't seen it since about the first 20 minutes versus Southampton. That energy's gone missing since then. Completely didn't see any of it in the game versus PSV. So I'm hoping that we can bring it against Forest and really kind of bounce back with that statement saying, hey, it was a blip. It was just kind of a lack of the energy. And we're here to stay up here at the top of the table. We're here to challenge and definitely think that we have to win this one. Kind of a morale booster statement game. That only leaves one game left in the weekend, and it's a spicy one: Man United versus West Ham at Old Trafford. Um, Man United looking good right now. Interesting that they brought Ronaldo back. Thought that they were going to try to not make it all about him. Perhaps I was wrong. They did get an expected win in the Europa League, but interesting to note that they did not really struggle like they have in their other Europa League games and were able to get a comfortable 3-0 win. Uh, Looks like for the first 20 minutes or so, it was going to be kind of uncomfortable, but I thought that they just kept at it well, and were able to get the good win. They're kind of doing, I think they're kind of got a lot of morale right now. Had some good results. The game versus Chelsea, where they tied, was crazy to say the least. Didn't really pop off till the end of the game. Again, I'm not even gonna talk about the referees in this one because that just seems to be where all the controversy is. Yeah, there's not much more I can say about the referees. But West Ham also, I think, have reignited their season after their poor start. So I think that this will be a very interesting match. I definitely think they're going to be goals. I definitely think it's going to be back and forth. I myself have predicted a 2-2 draw. I definitely think Man United are worth giving up some goals. And I think West Ham have found the goals. They are worth a couple of goals as well. Xavier agrees that it'll be a draw, but he thinks it'll be a 1-1. I'm looking for it to be a really exciting match. West Ham are going to bring in, everybody brings it to Old Trafford. Uh, so I think it's going to be a good game. I think me and you also are going to be up for it. I think it's going to be a 2-2. All right, as it sits, the For the Badge Prediction League is, if I'm not mistaken, tied up 28 points apiece. Hopefully, I should say, can break away and get a little lead here in the Predictions League. I'm looking forward to the games in the morning. Obviously, looking forward to Arsenal on Sunday. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. We got a lot of content on the way. Looking forward to the World Cup. Make sure to hit that little bell and you will hear all about it when those videos drop. So I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to the upcoming matches. We'll see you next time.